daylight savings time. It's still used in some other countries as well, including most of Canada, Europe, parts of Australia. The practice, though, has been losing its popularity. Now, Congress has been trying to end daylight savings time already. In fact, Senator Marco Rubio of Florida introduced the Sunshine Protection Act of 2023 to keep the spring forward time in place and not go back to the fallback. In other words, it would bring an end to daylight savings time the next time we set our clocks forward an hour. He said in a statement that ending the practice of changing our clocks would better align driving hours with the hours of sunlight, which would make driving safer. He said it would also help alleviate crime as well, given studies showing that more daylight in the evenings actually does dissuade some criminals, based on some studies. It would also help with the economy, he said, given studies showing that people tend to be less productive when we have to set our clocks back an hour. Senator Rubio's bill, it never made it to the president's desk. It did have bipartisan support, though. And so this is not strictly Republican, Democrat, although Trump wants to lead the way on ending it. Now, there are some arguments on keeping daylight savings time. The argument on that side is that changing our clocks to align with changes in daylight between summer and winter keeps our daily lives more in line with the amount of sunlight. Some argue this prevents things like car accidents, but again, the arguments go both ways. Let me show you some of this. There are studies that do show there is a spike in fatal car accidents when people set their clocks forward an hour. It's argued, you could argue some of it's about, daylight. Based on the studies, it's actually argued that it's people losing an hour of sleep all of a sudden. It throws off their internal clocks, and then people driving when they're really tired, they tend to be more dangerous. Again, a lot of people lose their lives whenever we move our clocks forward an hour. In fact, Science Daily wrote in 2020 that, quote, a study of 732,000 accidents over 2 decades has found that the annual switch to daylight savings time is associated with a 6% increase in fatal car crashes that week. People die because of it, according to studies. Brookings also found in 2015 that when we set our clocks forward an hour, there's a drop in crime. Now, it states that, quote, we find that shifting daylight from the early morning to early evening has pretty hefty returns for public safety. When daylight savings time begins in the spring, robbery rates for the entire day fall an average of 7%, with a much larger 27% drop during the evening hour that gains some extra sunlight. The important part here, they're saying it only changes for one day, which brings up the question: is it because that, again, there's more daylight, and so people don't want to commit crimes when there's more daylight, or maybe the criminals are just kind of tired because they lost an hour of sleep as well, right? Could go either way. Other studies have shown that daylight savings is bad for heart health. In fact, it turns out that the shock to our sleep schedules also has a shock to the body. Now, this is temporary, meaning it doesn't last the entire part of the year when our clocks are set forward or back, but it does affect people during the first part of time when we set our clocks forward an hour. When people suddenly lose an hour of sleep, it shocks the heart, and some people die from it. Now, like in other news, though, we still don't know fully what's behind the mystery drones being spotted throughout the United States. Theories of this are growing because we don't have answers. Now, as things currently stand, the White House has declared that the drones are manned aircraft operating legally, meaning they're technically not drones, according to them. There are possibly pilots inside of those, and somehow it's legal what they're doing. Now, others have raised points of concern with this, claiming these drones, I guess we can call them, they can move at very high speeds. They don't have normal systems that would allow them to be tracked. They're operating at night, and often with their lights on, which seems unusual because visibility is lower at night. And so why would there be flights at night when there's not much point in whatever the heck they're doing unless they're doing something we don't know? And having their lights on would defeat the purpose of being stealthy if that was the intent. Why would they have their lights on if they don't want to be seen at night, right? So with this in context, some rumors are now circulating online as people try to fill in the blanks of what exactly is going on. Now, podcast host Joe Rogan, he commented on a video that's since gone viral, millions of views. It's from a man who works on government drone contracts. The
I've
individual is
seen
John
that.
Ferguson. He's the CEO of Saxon Aerospace, and he alleges that there are missing nuclear weapons from Ukraine. And he says that he's aware through some of his sources that there were warnings that some of these nuclear warheads, at least one of them, was bound for the United States. He's suggesting these so-called drones we're seeing are actually specialized craft made to sniff out nuclear materials. Now, look, other people have come forward with similar claims. Some are speculating the aircraft could also be equipped with systems to detect nuclear materials. Some people have reported to known technology for this. In fact, here's a report from 1999 on the U.S. Department of Energy Office of Scientific and Technical Information, and the paper is called Aerial Radiation Detection. It says this refers to an airborne system designed for the detection of radioactive sources on the soil surface from an aircraft normally senses gamma rays emitted by the source. Now, these technologies were being pushed late 1999, early 2000s, even into the late early 2000s, because around that time there were concerns of terrorist threats, and especially over concerns of things like dirty bombs. Many of you may remember, especially after 9/11, there were a lot of concerns going around that terrorists might try to use a dirty bomb. Now, there are other systems in place to sense and detect nuclear materials, especially coming into U.S. ports. There are technologies in place to detect that. There are questions on how effective they are because we don't really know because the public's not told about it. And that does raise some questions on why they would need to have drones flying all over the place trying to sniff them out. Now, some people have speculated that these drones are being seen in key places because maybe they're looking for them. I don't know. With this said, this is pure speculation. There is no confirmation on this. It's people trying to figure it out because we're not being given clear answers. But this is becoming one of the bigger theories right now going around X and elsewhere on what these drones are doing. Now, look, there are also theories going around that the drones are tests for military logistics. Basically, the military has, in fact, been testing drones like this. Now, on the logistics side, imagine if military logistics were, again, this is how the military brings supplies to its ships, how they bring supplies to the front lines. Military logistics are a huge part of any operation. And imagine if military logistics could be handled in a way similar to like deliveries for Amazon packages. People who remember the Afghan war, the Iraq war, might know that logistics was one of the more dangerous jobs because of roadside bombs. This would help solve that problem. And if you could do drone deliveries for logistics, and especially doing them at night when they're harder to shoot down, that would make a lot of sense. Now, when it comes to the idea that maybe that's what these are, people are pointing specifically to drones being designed exactly for this, in particular ones being developed by Petrodynamics. And these particular drones, they can transform from quadcopter drones to fixed wing drones. And this is important because there have been accounts watching these drones flying around our skies doing exactly this. They are quadcopters, meaning they're kind of like your normal drones with 4 different rotors, and they transform in their fixed wing craft, and they can fly like that. People have witnessed these drones transforming in that way, which does bring some credibility to this claim. Now, again, the stuff I'm showing you, it's all speculation. We do not really know what these drones are. We don't know if they're drones or aircraft or manned aircraft, as the White House is saying. We do know, at least what we're being told, that they're operating legally, which means they're maybe government or military, but we're not being given answers. Well, everyone, that's all for tonight. Thank you for joining us, and as always, please take care of yourselves, stay informed, and stay free.